If you close your eyes tightly in a dark room or stare up at a bright, clear sky, you've probably seen them. Little glowing shapes or swarms of tiny blue dots drifting across your vision. Most adults, and certainly the scientific establishment, write this off as a purely subjective experience, an optical trick, a harmless hallucination with no actual physical reality. Psychoanalyst Wilhelm Reich looked at this exact same phenomenon and proposed a radically different explanation. He argued that our internal sensory experiences are actually objective biological events happening right inside our tissues. According to Reich, when you see those shifting anomalies, you are actually perceiving your own biological energy. Your body is consciously observing its own life force. If this feeling is a real physical energy operating in the natural world, it has to follow physical rules. It must be something we can trap, isolate, and measure with standard scientific instruments. Reich started his observation outside. If you stare into an empty night sky, you can often detect a faint, flickering mist. Astronomers attribute this to light diffusing through the atmosphere, but Reich noticed the intensity varied wildly from day to day, ruling out simple atmospheric interference. To isolate this movement from ambient light, he built a tool called an organoscope. It was essentially a hollow, blackened metal tube that restricted his field of view to a single patch of empty space. Looking through the tube, the flickering persisted. Then he applied a simple test. He attached a magnifying lens to the viewing end. Immediately, the glowing dots appeared significantly larger. You cannot use a piece of optical glass to magnify a trick of the mind. By successfully enlarging the anomalies, Reich demonstrated that this flickering was a tangible substance existing in the external environment. Having found it outside, the next logical step was to try and block it. Reich placed his observers inside a Faraday cage, a large wire mesh enclosure designed to completely shield the interior from standard electromagnetic waves. They sat in total darkness. After 30 minutes, the absolute black began to shift. The observers reported a blue-violet glowing mist forming in the room, along with distinct points of light radiating outward from their own bodies. The manifestation wasn't strictly visual. Prolonged exposure in the enclosed space irritated human tissue. Researchers regularly walked away from these darkroom sessions suffering from mild conjunctivitis. A purely psychological phenomenon does not give you pink eye. The ability to glow, irritate cellular tissue, and concentrate heavily inside an electromagnetically shielded room meant Reich was dealing with a distinct physical force. Reich engineered the orgone accumulator. Organic matter absorbs energy, and metal repels it. By wrapping a box in organic material and lining it with sheet metal, he built a one-way valve. Energy pulls through the exterior, hits the inner metal, and bounces inward, concentrating inside. Once the box was sealed, the physics began to fracture. When a thermometer was placed inside the empty accumulator, it consistently registered up to 1.8 degrees Celsius hotter than the surrounding air in the room. To test the electrical nature of whatever was generating that heat, Reich brought in a static electroscope. Under established thermodynamic laws, if an environment is heavily concentrated with charged ions, a charged electroscope placed inside will discharge its static electricity very rapidly. Yet inside the accumulator, the exact opposite happened. The electroscope discharged significantly slower than it did out in the open room. This meant the energy pooling inside the box was not electricity. Reich deduced it operated on its own unique tension, what he called orgone pressure. Because the density of the energy inside the box was so high, it pushed back against the electroscope, slowing down the flow and completely defying conventional electromagnetism. Reich tracked this same energy signature beyond his laboratory, to the scale of the entire planet. Through long-range telescopic observations, he identified the atmosphere itself visibly pulsating, a continuous wave moving from west to east. To prove this planetary wave was biological in nature, he built an orgone energy field meter. He tested dead wood and a lifeless fish against a living fish and a freshly cut leaf. The dead materials produced zero reaction, but the moment the living organisms were brought near the meter's metal plate, a connected light bulb illuminated. There was no physical contact required. This experiment established a measurable boundary. Living organic matter produces a unique radiating signature that sets it apart from dead matter. For his most extreme test, Reich placed a Geiger counter inside the orgone accumulator and let it sit. There was absolutely no standard radioactive material in the room, yet after prolonged exposure, the counter erupted, registering an impossible 25 to 100 radioactive counts per second. This reaction redefined orgone as a motor force, a violent mechanical power capable of driving machinery, distinct from mere heat or light. The microscopic blue dots seen behind closed eyes are the direct conscious experience of this motor force. It is the engine that animates all life.